What's up, fungal associates? Welcome. This is Completely Arbortrary, the podcast about trees and other related topics. I am one of your hosts. My name is Alex Crowson. And of course, over on the big green couch, we got Mr. KC Clapp.
Hi, everyone. Really happy to be here, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us in the studio today, Casey.
This is really a beautiful space. I really just am really comfortable here.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
I genuinely take that compliment, and I thank you.
You're welcome. Now, our first subject today is the Balsa tree.
Oh, wow.
Man, what a lame show if that's what we did all the time.
We've heard that show before.
Yeah, it's called NPR.
We got to bleep that out.
Uh-oh,
That's too salacious.
I know. I love NPR, you guys. Buy our podcast.
Please save our ship. Hi, Case.
Hey, Alex. How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Excellent. I heard you went to the dentist.
What did you hear?
I heard you went to the dentist this morning.
All right. Yeah, I did. I did. I got a little filling refilled.
Yeah.
My old dentist was a quack, I guess, and fucked up my filling.
What we're gonna do is put some caulking right in here, and it'll be nice and taken care of.
Yeah, it went all right, and then went to. We're gearing up for a big snowstorm tomorrow, Casey.
That's right, and honestly, So this is last week for those of you listening presently.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and I'm actually doing a talk on Wednesday, right before the snowstorm, about how trees build themselves and don't fall over.
That's right.
The irony is there's probably going to be some that are going to fall over at the snowstorm. Yeah. And so I'm going to have to be like, hey, listen, I can only talk about this much, you guys. There's a lot of other factors, but here's how trees do it.
And, Casey, on the way home from the dentist, I stopped. I was like, I got to get some food. And anytime there's a snowstorm, this is kind of my tradition now, I think.
Oh, okay.
I stop at Trader Joe's because they got the best snacks.
Really?
And I get myself, I don't know, $100 worth of fucking Trader Joe's groceries.
That is
not just snacks.
That's strange.
I got plenty of, I got that orange chicken they have.
Yeah,
I got a couple frozen pizzas. I'm just like, I'm ready.
That's a
for
great
the
idea.
snow. Got a new video game loaded up. I'm ready to go.
I should think about these things. I have to make my own pizzas.
You need to buy them in a cardboard box.
Oh, geez. No one told me this.
This is how it works in America.
All right. I understand.
Well, Casey, gosh, we're talking about a fun one today.
We sure are. But before we do, Alex,
you got a shout out.
I do. I want to shout out two different groups. I talked to some folks yesterday, both from the East Coast. One is Rutgers Forestry Crew. They reached out to me, Aaron, with them, I don't know, probably like 3 years ago.
Okay.
And was like, hey, do you want to sit down and talk with some students and hang out for a second? And I was like, yeah, sure. Anyway, it's a great talk with them last week that I really enjoyed. So
nice.
shout out to them for doing all their work.
Rutgers University?
Forestry Club.
Rutgers Forestry Club.
That's right.
Not university.
No,
not
it's the same.
Associated with the university?
Yeah, all the same thing. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So you can
Wait,
say
it's the same thing?
Rutgers is a university. They have a forestry club.
There you go.
And any of those mixtures work.
I was like...
I'm like panicking. What did I say?
Rutgers University is a forestry club?
It is. There's nothing else they do there.
What is the other group you're interested in calling out?
I was actually interviewed last week for a podcast.
What the hell?
It's going to be the next up-and-coming thing. And Zoe is the young lady who put this together. And it's called Phenomenal Phenology.
Wow.
And she's doing it for her 8th grade project.
Aww.
And I was so stoked to get involved. There's another thing where I forgot to reply for way too long while I was doing some editing last month. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, hey, oh my gosh, does this still work? I would still love to do it. And so he's like, heck yeah, got me on Zoom and we talked about phenology for a little bit. So it's up and coming. I don't know when it's going to be out, but I did want to give a shout out because she's a huge fan. We got on the show and she's wearing our Douglas fir tee.
Oh, that is nice. Just precious.
It was great. So anyways, shout out to Zoe for doing all the good work she's doing and having a good time.
Well, I hope that she gets a good grade on her podcast.
Oh yeah, me too. I mean, I as a professional podcaster will tell you, yes, she's going to get a good grade.
Cool. Well, Casey, we're talking about a fun tree today.
Yeah, we sure are.
This one is Balsa.
Balsa.
A tree so equated to its wood that I've never even thought about the fact that it was a tree.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
I've only ever just thought of balsa wood as just like existing.
Yeah, here it is. This is balsa wood.
It already exists.
Created in a factory, just like
yes,
this.
exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
And we got to talk about balsa wood. And of course, break balsa wood planks over each other's heads.
Yeah, exactly. And make everyone think we're actually hurting each other.
It'd be so cool.
Yeah.
We got to do so after a break. We'll be right back with Completely Arbortrary. Welcome back to Completely Arbortrary's Winter Weather Watch. Let's talk about the balsa, and let's imagine, as we do every week, that you and I are on a big Hollywood movie set.
Oh, okay.
And we get into a barroom brawl.
Yeah, yeah.
And I am going to throw you through some saloon doors, as I've always wanted to do.
Lots coming out now, like I always wanted to do.
And you go crashing through them, and I say, hey, what's this made of? And you say, balsa. Casey, let's ID this tree.
All right. So we're looking at a very wonderfully fast, tall growing tree.
Oh.
It is a tree that is native to Central South America, and generally speaking, is an early succession tree. Actually, I shouldn't say generally speaking, is the definition of an early successional tree.
This actually makes a lot of sense.
It does, yeah. When you start adding things together, you're like, actually, yeah, this is exactly right. So it tends to grow in disturbed areas, so on roadsides or in fallow fields. It tends to grow where there's a lot of sunlight,
Okay.
which is classic early succession. And it grows from the tiniest little seeds that are on tiny little puffs, like a cottonwood kind of thing, or a willow.
Uh-huh.
And those fly all over the place, land, and the tree starts immediately.
Wow.
And it does not stop growing as quickly as it possibly can for about 100 feet or more.
Wow. Do you have,
Generally not about more. It usually tops out about 100.
okay. Do you have any numbers of like this many inches a year?
I do.
Of course you do.
A 3-year-old tree is often found to be 23 feet tall.
Oh my God.
7 meters and over 6 inches in diameter. And
Like
I
a
assume
tomato plant or something.
oh my God, exactly right. Yeah. It's
Wow.
like bamboo made of real wood. Sorry, bamboo. So it grows so fast, and it is also like consistently harvested when the tree is between like 2 feet and 4 feet in diameter.
Wow.
And well past 80 feet at like 10 or 12 years. In fact, this is why people call it a weed tree, because it grows like a weed so fast.
Yeah.
And just reproduces like nobody's business.
This thing's voracious.
It is, yeah. So up to 100 feet in 7 years is the fastest I think that I've read, which is just outrageously quick and explains its like overall life strategy. Like we said, early growing tree, it will immediately sprout and grow at 100 miles per hour its entire life. And it does this as an early succession tree in order to get as much light and kind of dominance in the canopy as it can.
Sure.
Because it's growing also in these tropical places. So it always is competing with everything around it all the time.
Okay.
Now, the leaves, when they're young, are interesting.
By the way,
Oh, yeah.
can we talk? What did you say the scientific name?
Oh, my God, I didn't, did I?
Okay, I wanna know more
Sometimes
about this,
we just get going.
Genealogy of this tree.
Okay. This is Ochroma pyramidale.
Ochroma pyramidale.
Yeah. Apparently, Ochroma means pallid. So Ochroma is what that
Okay.
means. And pyramidale just means it grows like a pyramid. It grows very tall and fast in the pyramidal shape.
Okay.
However, there is an older name for it. And it's a monotypic species, so it's the only one in this genus.
Wow.
And it is in the mallow family, Malvaceae.
Malvaceae. Okay.
And it includes such well-known members as okra and cotton, cacao,
Wow.
and the durian, as well as a couple other wild plants.
A bunch of either very delicious or very practical plants.
Yes, and one of my favorite little herbaceous plants called the hollyhock. I love the hollyhock.
Well, can we talk about the flower?
Oh, yeah, we can absolutely talk about the flower.
It's gorgeous.
I think this flower is actually, like, I think it's gorgeous. I agree. But I also, when I was reading about it, I was like, this thing's way more interesting than I thought. Like, it's on the magnolia level interesting.
I was thinking of magnolia when I saw it.
You were? Okay,
It looks
just
like a
because of what
cousin
it
of
looks like.
magnolia.
Yes, which is very fair.
I don't know how to describe this, but it looks like a flower that is non-traditionally or ancestrally pollinated, like by some non-bumblebee insect.
Okay, that's fair.
Do you know what I mean? Like a magnolia, it's beetle pollinated.
Totally, yeah. So you're right, actually, in this. This is great. So the flower itself is described in two different resources that I found very aptly as a giant, not even giant, it's the exact same size and shape as a ice cream cone. And it has the same color as well.
It totally does.
Yeah, and this is when they're closed, so not when they're open and not when they're done. So it pops up. It has this very pyramidal kind of shape of the ice cream cone. So pyramidale also might actually be in reference to the flowers. Now that I say it, so it grows up, and at first it has this calyx that peels back. It's green, and it has this white flowering petals that also pop back, and they open up in the mid to late afternoon. And they curl back around so that you can only see this kind of white, kind of open cup-like thing. And it gets like almost 4 or 5 inches across at the base. And then it's maybe about 10 inches or so tall. So it gets actually, sorry, not 10, 5. It is substantially large, like the size of a southern magnolia. But here's the thing. It has almost an inch worth of a pool of nectar at the base.
Oh, yeah.
And it grows perfectly upright, so the nectar doesn't like tip out or anything like that.
Wow.
So it's just open like a cup. And in the middle, there's kind of this ball-shaped center, and that ball-shaped center is covered in the stamens, which are producing all this pollen.
Okay.
So things would come not during the daytime, but mostly during the evening and nighttime.
When it opens up.
Exactly, because it opens in late or mid-afternoon.
Isn't that a magnolia thing too? They only open at certain times of the day?
No, they usually open up for a day, then they close, then they open back up.
Oh, okay.
But this one doesn't close, but it does a bunch of other similar stuff in terms of the timing. So the magnolia would open up and it would be releasing its pollen. Then it closes up, and then the female part, the pistil, starts to get receptive to pollen when it opens up the second time.
Okay.
So it has this kind of offsetness.
That's right.
And our lovely balsa also does the same thing. So the stamens start producing all their pollen, and that happens for about a day or so. And then, and only then, does that ball-shaped thing rip open.
Whoa.
Once the pollen is all done, and that is where the pistils come out. And those then get pollinated only by a different flower that is not producing the same pollen as that individual flower.
What in the world?
Yeah. So it opens up for maybe a couple days, and it often gets bats to come in and drink the nectar, get the pollen all over them. Then they fly to another one, drink the nectar. Then that one ideally has already released its pollen, and now all of its pistils are out, and it can pollinate those.
Jeez.
But there's more, Alex.
Sounds like you're describing something from Dune.
Yeah, I know, right?
Some weird alien thing.
It is. It's so cool. But like it is. It's like an alien that is controlling when and how things interact with it.
Yeah.
And it's also gigantic and weird and beautiful at the same time. It's just like an alien.
It's also full of nectar.
It's full of delicious nectar. It almost feels like a trap. Like I would think that this is a trap.
Totally.
It doesn't actually seem that it does anything nefarious at all. This to me, and this will be a running thing throughout, I think, the rest of this. This is like a kid. This tree feels like it's a young adolescent who's just super excited all the time.
Sure.
To have a great time. Oh, and my flowers are going to be ice cream cones. And I'm like, okay, yeah, great. And they actually are.
I like to think of them as glasses of champagne.
Okay. That's quite upper crusty.
A little bubbly for the bats.
For the bats. And during the daytime, also, capuchin monkeys will go and hang out. And those are the adorable ones that everyone knows about.
See, I imagine them just like holding the little champagne flute, just taking a little sip of nectar.
Just pouring it just into their mouth right from the flower. The other things, I should say, that also pollinate it are these two species of animals that are in the raccoon family.
Oh, boy.
And they are adorable nocturnal little guys.
Okay, what are they?
One is the olingo, which is Olingo.
Olingo.
Long prehensile tails that can walk around through the forest and up in the tree, and they're arboreal. The other is the kinkajou.
Kinkajou.
I love them. And the picture on Wikipedia is too much.
Wow, Kinkajou sounds like a Pokemon.
It does. It totally does. Yeah.
And it looks like a Pokemon.
And it looks like a Pokemon. It's got these big, huge, beady eyes so that it can see at night. And it has its two little paws up over the thing that it looks like it's kind of like looking to get out of its little box or something.
I think it's selling like apples at a little fruit
Will you
stand.
buy my apples?
This is the most adorable thing I've ever. Oh, there's a baby.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's too much.
All right.
And these are both like arboreal, nocturnal mammals that go and climb out to these branches, drink all of this delicious nectar, and then move on to the next thing.
And spoiler alert, they've got very long tongues.
They do.
Both of them.
They have to reach all the way in to get that nectar. So the flowers, Alex, they're classic Malvaceae, where they're this long kind of capsule. Now they're covered in a fuzzy wool around the outside.
Okay.
And they are kind of, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 inches long. And they look very similar to a rabbit's foot.
How about that?
Yeah, you remember rabbit's feet, right? This little thing that you could get at
oh yeah,
get at a store. You put your quarter in at Pietro's Pizza, and it comes out, this little thing.
How grim.
Very, very fuzzy. And they split open to release these seeds that are also super fuzzy. They're covered in this kind of downy fluff that then is just taken off by the wind, like we said, and then the whole process starts over. So the flowers and the wood itself are some of the most interesting things. The leaves, they're gigantic, though. They grow almost 4 feet wide when the tree's young.
What?
And then it becomes a little bit smaller as it gets to
4
old age.
feet?
This is what I've read.
They're installing solar panels out here.
That's right. Yes.
That's crazy.
It's classic for a very quick growing tree. The Polonia is another tree around here that does a very similar thing.
That's actually pretty hilarious.
Yeah. Like they're gigantic elephant ear size like leaves.
I can just like imagine it like coming to life and then just start panicking. Like, what are these other plants doing? Growing leaves? I'm going to grow the biggest leaf you've ever seen.
Honestly, it's like a kid. I'm just saying.
My leaf's bigger than your leaf.
What? Yeah. I mean, shut up.
My fruit has a force field.
You can't touch it. Yeah, it's I think it's you're probably similar. Like I think you're onto something with like it sees what other plants are doing, and it's like I gotta compete.
Yeah,
and it puts out the biggest leaves that it possibly can.
And then it realizes that was a lot of work.
Yes,
maybe I'll make some smaller ones.
I'm just gonna chill out when I get a little bit bigger. Okay, I'm gonna be cool. And yeah, so then it finally like reduces its size to about an inch or so.
The leaves?
Sorry, not an inch a foot. Oh my God. They go from 4 feet to 1 inch.
I was like, that is remarkable.
Yeah, not the right case.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
That's still a big leaf.
It's a big leaf. It's like it's kind of like a little bit bigger than a grape leaf or a Polonia or about the size of a lot of the big normal catalpas, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was thinking of catalpas.
Yeah. So they're lovely trees. They grow out quickly. They take up a lot of space as soon as they can with these big kind of funny looking leaves with bark that is very tannish white and smooth all the way down.
Okay.
Does not do much with the bark. However,
yeah.
Here's where the tree really becomes interesting. It's the wood. It's everything underneath all of this. So like you said, famously, they are very light and very like easily dented wood. Like you can take your thumbnail and just push it right into it.
I see a photo of a man carrying a huge log on his shoulder.
I don't think that's real.
You think this is someone took the time to Photoshop this?
I don't know.
Look at this guy.
Well, look at the bark on it.
Well, the bark is stripped off of this one. Casey's coming over to look at the photo. Now, are you thinking of this one, Casey? With the giant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There's another photo of a man with it's a minivan sized
It's huge,
log.
And it's like it has big ribs in it and these like very rough looking bark.
But it also kind of looks like it's being hoisted by something above it.
Oh, is that real?
Assisted or something?
Okay, I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know.
But I've seen that photo and I'm like, that's not a balsa because they have smooth bark. And they are very perfectly cylindrical, the stems. They do not get these weird bumps in it. They don't have ribs. They don't even develop buttress roots.
I have an update.
Okay.
That photo is the thumbnail of a YouTube video.
Yes.
I've scrubbed through the YouTube video.
Wow.
That photo does not appear in the video.
Aha!
So I wonder if you're right.
It's a thirst trap
That's
for wood.
damn. That tree is hot.
Whoa.
So I wonder if they are literally just did like a clickbait thumbnail of this man carrying a photoshopped tree.
So the way that the balsa wood grows, which, like I said, is famously light. That first photo, yes, I'm convinced that first one, all the bark is taken off.
Yeah.
That one, I'm sure, is balsa.
Just like a white tube.
It's a white tube. It's perfect. That's exactly it. It's very pallid, I would describe as.
Oh, absolutely.
So the balsa wood has this strategy that we've talked about multiple times, right? It's the classic live fast, die young kind of idea.
Sure.
It's a very early successional tree, except for the Douglas fir. It's the only one that crosses every boundary. It grows up, and it has done a few things that I think are unique to balsa and its ability to be an early succession tree to like the nth degree. Wow. In fact, if we could, I would go back and use this tree as early succession because of my God.
Wow.
It has adapted its wood.
Because of your God.
Because of my God. My God has told me I must go back. We must go back in time.
I didn't know you were a monotheist.
I was sent from the future by God.
By the wood god Balsa.
By the wood god Balsa. All hail. So it turns out that this tree has all the same characteristics that you'd expect from an early succession tree. It grows only in the brightest sunlight. It grows very fast. It's not very decay resistant, and it tends to put out a shit ton of seeds all over the place to reproduce itself. So it has essentially gotten rid of a significant amount of its lignin.
Yes.
And lignin is not only the compression strength in wood, it's also what helps it become less decay susceptible.
Okay.
Because it is a really unique molecule that does not metabolize easily.
Would you say it's what makes wood woody?
You know, I don't think I would, because that I think is really cellulose. Cellulose is the long strands of things that you kind of see. So whenever you get poked by a very nice sharp splinter, it's like this. That's what cellulose is doing. The long strands of things.
Gotcha.
And the lignin is kind of the cement that fills in all the gaps and holds everything together.
Okay.
So they're really part and parcel, though. They're two sides of the same coin, the coin being wood. So in this case, there is just significantly more cellulose than there is lignin.
Okay.
And the tree has also made the biggest cells it can with the thinnest cell walls that it can.
Oh.
And then fills the rest with water. So there's a lot of empty space to the point where the amount of water inside of a green or very freshly cut or still growing tree, the water to cell actual physical wood ratio is like 5-1.
Water to cell is 5-1?
Exactly. So imagine a cube that is made of wood, and you make that cube big enough that there's 5 times more water volume than there is a volume of wood that makes up the box itself.
I did understand what you were...
Okay, great.
No, a visual example is great.
Strike it from the record.
I'm just...
Alex gets it.
Imagine you had a bowling alley. No, imagine you had 5 bowling alleys. And then you had one more.
And then you add one more.
And 5 of them were flooded.
That's what we're talking about here. Now I get it. That makes more sense.
So if you dried out a piece of balsa, it's going to be about a fifth as light.
Precisely, yeah.
As it would be green.
Exactly. And that's the thing about this wood, is that per weight, it is still very strong and woody, but it's extremely light compared to other things.
Yeah.
Per the amount of strength that it has. Similar like last week or the week before we talked about the Sitka spruce, where it has the ratio of strength to weight is very high.
Sure.
Balsa is just on that level.
Like an ant.
Yes, yeah. Very good, very good. But the thing that differs between balsa and spruce is that the balsa wood is not hard at all.
Yes.
And it is not necessarily the best for making a long airplane wing or a body or something like that.
Unless that airplane is a little toy.
Yes, but still, well, no, you're right. 100%. It's like every time you look up balsa wood properties, it is just 100% hobbyist like websites and blogs and things.
Yeah.
The thing is, Alex, it was used to make airplanes back in the day, but they would layer it between hardwood and balsa wood.
Wow.
Because it's extremely good in force. So if you like shock it or you like hit it really hard, it's almost unfazed. So it has a great shock resistance.
Wow.
It's very light and fairly strong for the weight.
Okay.
And so if you build a boat today that you want to be light and fast and hard, you put a very hard wood on the outside and you layer inside a balsa wood and another hard wood on the interior section.
Oh my gosh.
So you get a light wood sandwiched between and glued to very hard, strong wood. So you get the best of both worlds, very light and very strong.
Reminds me of a croissant, where they layer the laminations,
Oh my God, it's just like a croissant. Everyone, I'll be right back.
It's not a terrible comparison.
No, it's not, but it was not what I thought you were going to say to like the nth degree. Oh,
Interesting.
Man.
Okay, so they would make layers of hardwood and balsa.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And they would do this for airplanes as well.
Interesting.
So to give you a great idea, the Jenka hardness, 67 pound-feet.
67.
Yes, which is about 300 newtons.
Now, some of these trees are in the thousands.
Yes, just to give you an example of a mediocre, middle-of-the-road kind of tree.
Yeah.
Black walnut is 1,010 on that Jenka hardness scale.
This
so
is 67.
This is 67.
Less than a tenth.
So, yeah,
Wow.
This is 67. Another great way to conceptualize this, the block, or if you get a block of wood, it's the size of a carry-on. 5.5 pounds.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, which is less than most carry-ons. It's less than every carry-on.
That is wild.
Yeah. So
5 pounds.
when you think about how this tree's growing, it makes total sense why this tree would have these adaptations. Because it's growing in a tropical forest where everything grows fast all the time. And it must compete because that's its entire goal. Grow fast, die young. So on top of all this, as a tree gets bigger, the wood gets a little bit harder on the outside because most likely it's slowing its growth down a little bit. The rings are a little bit smaller, so they're a little bit closer together.
Okay.
I say rings, it's a tropical tree, so it doesn't really develop rings. It just kind of slows down its rate of growth.
Oh, right. Because there are no seasons.
There are no seasons. It's just growing.
Okay.
It does, I should say, it slows down in the dry season, sometimes loses its leaves in the dry season, which is drought deciduous. Okay. But for the most part, it just kind of keeps on growing. And it will start to decay pretty damn quickly on the inside. So if there even gets a little bit of a nick, it just is a house of cards. It falls apart entirely.
Okay.
But that's the thing. Just like all the other early succession trees, it says, what's my budget? And it says, wonderful, let's get Doge in here. We're going to cut all the structural components from the government of this tree. And we are going to only get as big and as absolutely ham sexy as we can. Put everything into the flowers.
You've been watching Buster Keaton movies.
Yeah. His famous line.
Wow, she is ham sexy.
She is ham sexy. We got to put that on a shirt.
That does feel like a 1920s thing you would say about someone.
I was thinking go ham and sexy, and I put those two things together in an innovative way.
I absolutely love it.
Perfect.
Ham sexy.
So yeah, it grows up, puts all of its energy into reproduction, those big flowers with literally an inch of nectar. Growing these giant leaves as fast as it can, and then putting as little infrastructure into its actual structure as it can. And that's fine. Tree lives with it. As soon as it gets a nick, though,
it all falls apart.
Just falls apart.
Wow.
Yeah. And the other thing, I should add, this tree is not a. It's not.
Will you do me a favor and start that over and say, and another thing.
And another thing, Alex.
Yeah.
This tree is not a jerk. It doesn't take over a forest.
This was actually on my mind.
You were thinking
I was
this.
waiting for a nice pause in the conversation. I was going to bring this up. How prolific is this tree?
It's quite prolific.
Okay.
Anywhere that it grows natively and you find a little disturbance, or it finds a little disturbance, you'll know the disturbance was there because you'll see this tree.
Okay.
Grows everywhere quickly, but it does not create forests of itself.
Okay.
Which I think is really interesting. So it usually...
Because it totally could.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
And it seems like even plantations are, like they have to plant them in a specific way so they grow up next to each other. Otherwise, they tend not to grow in these big forests like you'd expect up here with Douglas fir or even red alder, which it would just take over a space, and then slowly but surely other trees would come and, take it over as succession happens.
Yeah.
This one seems to be like, there's a spot, grows up and then takes over, and then over time it shades out the other little balsas that didn't compete as well. So you tend to get one big tree in an area again over like 10 years. So they end up living fast and dying young, or live very fast and die super young. Either way, that's the young or super young is our spectrum here.
It's that rock star lifestyle.
It's a super rock star. Yeah, so it's a really fascinating kind of tree that then, of course, humans immediately were like, yeah, we're going to use this.
100%.
Yeah, balsa is actually a Spanish word for raft. Because
oh my God, of course.
what it was used for. The Portuguese word, I think, is translates as buoy.
Okay, yeah. Buoyant.
Yeah. So native peoples all throughout South America, wherever this tree grew, they figured that out pretty quickly. They'd make rafts of them.
Totally.
They just take a bunch of the large kind of stems, which, I don't know, 6 or 8 inches or so, so like a year and a half old. And then they would just go blip, 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 put them right next to each other, and then lash them together, and now you got yourself a raft.
You could maybe even use another part of the tree to lash them. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think they use other things like lianas and different vines to do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yes, they could theoretically use only native materials to build a raft, and conceivably, as proven by the old Kon-Tiki, you can float it all the way across the Pacific Ocean and find yourself roughly in Tahiti.
This is a reference I do not get.
Oh man, I only know about it from a song by the old band Houndsmouth. I think it was Houndmouth. But yeah, so of course that is one thing that people used to use, and we use it still to this day, as you said, for hobby things and all this stuff. So none of that needs any introduction to be covered. It's really, why is it used like that, and how does the tree grow to inform all these uses that I think is fascinating.
It's very much so, Casey.
Yeah, it's a fun tree though.
It's great. I am really excited to review it. I've got some things to say.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Fabulous.
But we got to do that after a break. So we'll be right back with Completely Arbortrary. Welcome back to Completely Arbortrary. Casey.
Alex Crowson. What's next?
Our review of the Balsa. Casey, here's how it works. Here's some final thoughts on this tree, then give it a rating of 0 to 10 golden cones of honor.
Okay.
Very light golden cones of honor.
Very light, yeah. In fact, if you don't lash them down, they'll float right away.
That's right. They could have used them in up.
They really could have.
Casey, as our resident expert, we'll begin with you.
All right. So I mentioned it. I mentioned it a few times, Alex. This tree, to me, feels like a kid that never grows up, or maybe a kid that grows up a la Tom Hanks in his famous movie where he is a kid.
Young.
What is the name of it? Big. Oh my God. I was hoping that I could have come up with it while I was saying it, or you would have remembered it. So I'm glad we did. What is it? Young, big, old, medium? Oh, it's big.
Big.
Where he's an adult that is a child.
Yes.
That is what I think about with this tree.
Wow.
Like, it grows up, it has these big floppy leaves, and like I said, it's like, oh man, my flowers, they're gonna be ice cream cones, and then it's gonna be like a dandelion is how all my fruit is gonna, or all my seeds are gonna float away. I'm gonna grow really fast, and I'm gonna get really big, and
it's very cool.
It's really cool. I know. Thanks. And then I'm gonna make a paper airplane out of wood. So for me, I don't know. It just seems like a bubbly tree, and I have yet to find anything that's like, well, here's the downside to it.
Sure.
Like, everyone seems to love it. It's native. It doesn't have any. Everyone calls it a weed tree, but you know my feelings on weed trees. It's just like, this is a tree doing its best everywhere where you just wish it wasn't so good at growing in its native habitat. So I'm like, no, you don't want to hear it.
What would you call it? Give it a label, why don't you?
I will give this tree a label of 7.5 golden cones of honor.
Pretty good.
And I also want to note that if I was to call it something, it would be an early successional little kid.
Little kid.
Yeah.
7.5.
7.5.
Very good.
So I think this tree is interesting. It doesn't do anything extraordinary in terms of, its flower. Well, it does. I mean, I guess the most extraordinary thing is the wood properties, and how it's adapted itself to do what it does, and those extraordinary flowers. Like, I just think those flowers are incredible.
Sounds like 3 extraordinary things to me.
Yeah, everything else, it's fine.
All right,
it's cool.
Fair
it's
enough.
Great. I'm into it.
Well, that's a good score.
I just think it's a funny little floppy tree.
It is kind of It is hilarious. It's funny you say that you feel like it's a little kid. Because I'm going to go back to my thing of I think this this tree is a child actor.
Yeah.
It's like meteoric rise to fame, used heavily by the system for profit.
Timothy Chalamet.
He's an adult.
Oh, what?
I'm talking like Shirley Temple, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I think she had a perfectly fine adulthood, but you know the type. You just like the system loves them when they're a kid.
Yes. Yeah.
And they get to a certain age, dead.
Yeah, that's very true. Just
Heroin
completely
overdose.
gone, and no one cares.
Sorry.
Yep. You're right on.
So it's not funny. I think I'm feeling, but I love all of its properties. What a great tree. And like balsa is such a iconic wood.
Yeah. Right.
Not just for like rafts and airplanes, but like, I want to put together a little model home.
Yes. Yeah. People do it all the time.
Little balsa wood. Why not? It's great. I love it. I'm probably going to give it a 8.0.
An 8.0.
Yeah. Straight up the middle.
Love this, Alex.
Yeah. Good tree.
It's a great tree.
I'm liking it a lot.
I really would love to see one. In fact, I think I have, and I just didn't know it.
Oh, man.
But I don't know for sure because I've been to the tropics and I have seen big floppy trees and I have not thought twice about them.
Well, I would really love to carry one on my shoulder and look like a strong man
I would also like that.
in front of a pretty girl.
Of course, you just pull it up there and be like, "Yeah, hold on, let me just move this log." maybe you should have an old lady underneath the log who's like clearly struggling.
Good, yes. That's very good.
Would someone strong and diligent and sensitive help me?
And then there's like a cat up in the tree, so I cut it down and just like
just bend the whole tree
Slowly.
over.
Yeah.
Put it back into place. Yeah, I like this.
All right, Casey, it's time for our completely arbitrary AMA, and this week we've got one from Garrett. Garrett says, "Sup, dudes."
What up?
Garrett from Trivia Team Deodorables here.
Ooh, this is from the last trivia I did. I adore that name.
That's great. Garrett asks, is pollarding a tree actually necessary or beneficial? From my understanding, when I used to be a junior climber, it was described as a, quote, factory reset.
Oh, okay.
And Alex, when is your first live show in Seattle? My wife and I would be glad to be in the front row.
I love that.
Garrett also gives a book recommendation.
Okay.
To Speak for the Trees by Diana Beresford Kroger.
Okay. Well, I'll have to look that up. I don't think I've heard of that one.
I haven't either.
Okay.
Pollarding.
I don't know how I feel about this term.
Well, yeah, what is pollarding?
All right. So pollarding is a means of pruning a tree. And it is often conflated, and for fair reasons, with coppicing. And if I remember correctly, the distinction is that when you coppice a plant, you cut it at the base and it shoots back. Whereas pollarding, you have a tree that is on a stem, it has branches that come out, and then you lop off those branches.
Yeah.
Then they shoot out new stems, and then you cut those new stems off at the same spot. So it essentially becomes this kind of like branch that looks like an arm with a hand and a fist filled with knuckles, with new sprouts coming off all the time.
It looks like you're correct.
Okay, perfect. Now, a factory reset is a horrible way to think about this,
Oh, wow.
in my opinion, because people would often do this to large trees, and the metaphor is not apt. Because as a tree is growing, it is putting its water resources and its photosynthate, which is the sugars and the starches that it makes in its leaves, and it's storing it in the parenchyma and all these other little bits and parts in the wood on every single surface. So at the very smallest twig, the next bigger branch, the limbs, the stems, and the roots.
Like skin.
Yes, they're all filled. Well, it's more like the fat underneath in the places that you store your energy in a body.
Okay.
So the skin on the outside is what's holding all that together, and it's what's essentially creating your vascular system. And if you come through and you top a tree, or you just completely cut off all the ends of the branches, so you have a tree that grows up to 6 feet, then it has branches that grow out 2 feet in all directions, and you then go whoosh, cut them at that 2 feet mark. Now you have cut off all the rest of the growth of the tree that would be doing two things. One, it's storing the food.
Sure.
Two, it is producing the food. So this factory reset is more like taking everything that this tree had built and not taking it back to zero because the tree's already a big tree. You're actually just cutting off its head and telling it to regrow its head with less food and with less ability to make new food.
I've got a great analogy.
Okay, what's yours?
It's these gut biome companies that are like, take these pills.
Okay.
Restart your gut biome.
Yes, okay, totally.
And it like just causes you to have horrendous diarrhea for
sure.
like 5 days, right?
I think this would be like taking an
Antibiotic.
exactly, and
Yes.
then having one of those things.
Yes, yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah, that's more what I'm thinking is like they say that you can improve your gut biome by
Sure.
completely destroying it
Yeah.
and starting over, but like you don't really need to do that.
You don't really do that, and honestly, it's
That's
probably
like
not very
addition
good
by
for
subtraction, you know.
Yes, yeah, okay, there you go. I think that's a perfect example because you're already a grown body. You already have things that are used to everything, like you're a system.
Yeah.
And as soon as you take that system's kind of way to make food away, you're like, you panic.
Totally.
So that is the stress response that comes out from the ends of each one of those twigs. Each one of those new shoots that are coming up is the tree panicking and saying, I've lost my head. Now I need to regrow it to A, make food, and B, I assume that there are other trees around me trying to beat me in my race, so I have to grow up as fast as I can.
Then when you eat food on one of these things, it's like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
I don't have any information.
Like,
Just send it out.
I've never eaten this before. And yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you do
like a
not
panic
have the right
response.
things. Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So that is what pollarding is. Now, it's used as a management technique for places that want to get fodder for animals is the best regard, is the best thing that I can think of. Where
Same for coppicing, right?
yeah, except often, I guess you could use either one for either one. But coppicing, in my experience, allows the things to grow a little bit bigger, and you can cut them off at the base. So your sticks are longer and skinnier, and well, not necessarily skinnier, just longer. And you use those to build things. So like wicker is used this way, where you can wrap it up and you make it into baskets. Like it becomes something to be used. Okay. Whereas the other becomes something usually you'd grow it up and it shoots up all these new big leaves very fast. And then you cut those off and you feed them to all your animals.
Okay.
Great. That works out. Everyone's super happy except the tree, but you're managing the tree in that way. It's staying very small and you've done it from the very, very get-go. So that is a proper way to do it. You grow a tree up and you start that process early. Whereas some people say, I'm just going to pollard this tree, which is an already fully grown tree. You're not factory resetting it. You are really, really hurting it. You're taking away, like I said, its food that it has stored and its ability to make new food.
Yeah.
And of course, if you cut a tree that is has a stem that's a couple inches in diameter, all those new sprouts are not connected further in the way a normal branch would be. So they are not as structurally sound.
Makes sense.
And they're growing on a stem that's now completely exposed. It'll certainly start to decay, and you get decay going down into those main branches.
It seems like a bad idea all around.
Yeah, unless you're growing a small tree, you're keeping it that way so that the tree will produce these new things. That is a little bit better because you're not letting the tree grow big and then making it small. You have a small tree that you're keeping small and you're pruning it in a certain way. That's actually far more sustainable, but it's a production for the actual fodder that the animals are going to eat. It is not to get a healthy tree that's giving you all these other benefits. It's a means of production for a particular resource.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great question, Garrett. If you've got a question for us.
Alex. There's two parts to that question.
What?
What's the other part of that question?
Oh, when's your first live show in Seattle? You know, I'm touring with a friend, with a friend's band.
What?
I think we're playing in Seattle in April.
Why do you not tell me about this?
It's still in the works,
Oh,
Casey.
right. Okay. So this is the earliest
tentative. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And then I don't know when I'm taking my own music anywhere.
Yeah. Maybe you should. I mean, this is just my idea. You should open for your friend's band.
That'd be pretty cool.
That'd be great. My Man band that I enjoy very much. They had two of their players as the opening act. which is
very
very
common
goofy.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they just had a fun time with it though.
Yeah, I would love to actually. I might talk to him about that.
Hey, okay, so there you go. So keep your ear down, Garrett. Keep your ears to the ground.
Keep your ear down. If you've got a question for us, become a Treemium member at arbitrarypod.supercast.com. It's ARBORTRARY pod.supercast.com. You can even join the Cone Club. And every month, starting the month after you sign up, you will get a sticker in the mail of a different conifer cone.
That's right. Now, to be clear, you get the sticker from the month you signed up. Everything's just lagged 1 month because of our logistical setup.
Yes, it's a bit of a logistical setup we have. And the one that you're going to get this month is the Knob Cone Pine.
That's right.
And it's by Sean Hebrink, a Bloodroot tattoo.
We're going to get that tattooed on me, ideally,
Yes.
in the next, before I leave in March for a bit of a trip. So,
Are you getting a version that has completely arbitrary on it?
no, I don't think so. Yeah, I hadn't planned on it. I'm just
I was like,
getting the-
wow,
yeah,
I can't believe Casey is. I think when
That would be a move.
someday when we end the show, you and I should get matching completely arbitrary tattoos to
All right.
commemorate our years together.
I think that sounds great. I would prefer, if it was just me, though, to just get the golden cone.
Sure.
I think that would be sick.
Can we get like a realistic version of the golden cone? I don't want like a cartoony version of it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay, we can do whatever we want.
All right.
In fact, there's a shop that I go to that has a golden cone. I'll take a picture of it. It's a Ponderosa pine cone that they spray painted perfectly golden. It looks wonderful. I took
all
a picture
right.
of it. I'll send it to you away.
I wonder if that because my friend Dan Cable is on a hockey team. It's the Portland Pine Cones.
You did tell me this, but I forgot about that.
Their version of the Stanley Cup in their league is a golden cone.
I love this so much, you guys.
And I said, I'll see you in court, you bastard. All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening to this episode of Completely Arbitrary. We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye. Completely Arbitrary is hosted by Casey Clapp and Alex Crowson.
Our music is by Aves and the Mini Vandals, and our artwork is by Jillian Barthold.
To support the podcast and get rewards in return, become a Treemium member at arbitrarypod.supercast.com.
Thanks for listening.